Welcome to this webinar. My name is Kate Colchin and I'm a pre-HE careers consultant at UE Bristol. My role is to work in schools and colleges in the Bristol North Somerset area to provide impartial careers advice and guidance to post-16 students. When I talk to students in schools and colleges, we talk about higher education in general rather than promoting UE specifically. So a lot of the slides that I show today will be slides that we use in schools and colleges. And so we're not about selling courses necessarily, but about making sure that young people make informed decisions about their futures. So this is the outline of our webinar today. Firstly, I'm going to highlight some of the concerns that students have about starting higher education, portraying those most popular concerns and also looking at the pros as well and what they're excited about. Secondly, then highlighting what requirements employers have so that the students can feel that they know what the outcome will be and they know what employers are wanting from them. Thirdly, to give you some examples of graduate destinations that are related to particular university degree courses and how students can make the most of the university experience, because it's not about just starting a university course and then deciding after 3 years what you're going to do next. Universities across the country provide careers advice and guidance and employability sessions to help students think about preparing themselves for leaving university. And finally, I'll signpost you to some useful resources that I hope will help, some of which you might be using already in schools and colleges with your students. So just to provide some context before we start, you can see there a huge number of people entered higher education in 2015, and actually women are most likely to enter higher education now than males. So the numbers going to university is up just a small percentage from the previous year. So there are huge numbers of people going to university, and worth noting that that's why their personal statements have to be absolutely right, because the competition is quite fierce for many courses. You can see there that the white ethnic group were least likely to enter higher education in 2015. And you can find all of these statistics on the UCAS website in their corporate data information. On that same part of the UCAS website, you might be interested to know about the profile of higher education students. And this information you can see on the screen is based on the number of applicants. So I've just given you here some examples. You can see the Bristol West and the Bristol South entry rate is quite different. So that's we're obviously doing quite a lot there to help students know about know about higher education and what that means to students. So you might find that interesting to go into that corporate data section of the UCAS website and find your area and just have a look at how that compares. So on the screen here, you can see typical pros and cons that students come up with when we do sessions with them as to why they want to go on to university, but also some of their concerns. They are concerned that they are concerned about getting a job and what that means. The media often talks about unemployment, and so they are interested to know the percentage of that and what that actually means for them and where the best courses are for them to go into. But leading on to that, we have a good discussion about where some of these comments have come from, and so we try to back that up with lots of information so that students can make these great informed decisions and they're not worried about things like unemployment based on just what people have said, but looking at the data and looking at the information is really important. For example, there's lots of information about tuition fees and the cost of going to university, and this certainly is an issue. In our work, we don't necessarily talk about finance in lots of detail. We leave that certainly to the student finance experts, but it is worth saying at this point that graduates on average earning around £22,000. So you can see on the screen here, this is a common question that we would get them to think about, and how much they would have to repay each month. They are often surprised to learn that actually £7.50 is how much they would have to repay, and there's usually a good debate then as to what they actually spend already on £7.50. And so the value of going to higher education is then discussed, and you might be having those kind of conversations with your students anyway. So benefits of going on to university, you can see on the screen here 6 reasons why going to university would be of benefit, people thinking about it. It does have that impact, a higher impact on earnings, so both men and women earn more over their lifetime having gone to university than not. They are better placed for competitive careers, and many careers are developing all the time, and so students are at that place where universities are getting employers in to run workshops and do talks, so they're very much part of understanding where the market is going at that moment in time. It is really important though that students obviously enjoy studying and want to learn, so that's definitely a benefit if that is definitely what the students are interested in. You can see in the blue box there I've put that they develop a higher level of skills, and that's what a lot of employers talk to us about, that they do want this high level of skills, not necessarily a graduate coming out knowing absolutely everything or being trained in a particular job, but whether they have the right skills to go into that particular business. And this report from the CBI demonstrates this really well. You can see on the screen that employers wanting the attitude and aptitude way above anything else, and that the degree class, the degree subject is important, but actually not as important as whether that person has got that can-do attitude, that they are resilient, that they can communicate with clients if they're put in front of different people, and all of that is important. And that's the sort of work that university career services do with students to make sure that they have and are aware of the skills and attitudes that employers want. So drilling that down just a little bit more, you can see on the screen now the most popular skills that employers are wanting if students go into employment at 18, and in a bit more depth there if they are taking on a graduate. And we have good discussions about how students can try to evidence some of these particular skills so that it makes them think what they're doing at the moment, whether it's work experience or a part-time job or volunteering, that demonstrates these particular skills. Just to show in a little bit more detail, this is an example of just a trainee solicitor position. So someone who's been to university, may have done law, may not have done law. So you can see that they're wanting some qualifications and experience, but actually, perhaps more importantly, the 5 skills that they are outlining there that they are wanting. And likewise, universities ask for skills and qualifications as well. Obviously, they're looking for a particular subject to have been studied in this particular example of dentistry. But interestingly as well, they want the right type of person. So they want someone who's caring and committed to working with people, that they can communicate, and that they are happy to take on that level of responsibility. At this point, we are trying to show students some information and some facts so that they make these decisions based on good information. This is a slide that we show quite a lot. where we encourage them to not to take any preconceived ideas about different universities, but ask them which they think from this list of university courses and the apprenticeship at the end there, which is the most competitive. They're often surprised that it is midwifery at Liverpool John Moores, and also the apprenticeship, which really makes them think about the institutions that they're considering and trying to find out how many applicants apply to that particular course, and so therefore whether they've got a high or a low chance of getting an offer, but how important then that personal statement is when they are applying to a very competitive course. And obviously this changes year on year. So midwifery is really popular at the moment, and competitive to get into. Next year it might be something quite different. So going onto that Which University website is a really good tool to help them to look at the information. Here's just another example. You can do this particular search on different subject areas, and I used this particular slide when I worked with some English students, business students as well, so that they could have a look at which might be the most competitive. And there is the result. So it is useful to have a look at all these different resources. So we've looked at the skills that are important. We've looked at the entry requirements that a university is looking at, and the concerns that some students have. Many students are asking what type of destinations and jobs people can go into once they have finished their course. And so giving some examples of those destinations is really important. Particularly at parents' evenings, we find. So this is a slide that just shows you some destinations that relate to subjects and what people have gone into that are related to that particular area of study. There are some other graduate destinations, some that might not be quite so obvious, where perhaps those transferable skills will have been drawn on rather than specific subject knowledge. We encourage our students to ask questions when they go to open days, so that they find out what the graduates have gone on to, and encourage them to look behind the information that they're given. So, for example, the four destinations you can see on the slide here show non-graduate level jobs, but they're on track. It could be that they needed more work experience. It could be that they needed to develop skills. So they're not necessarily working at a graduate level at the moment, but certainly on track and in the right position to gain graduate positions in the future. And that's really important. Certainly when students go to open days, to find out the details behind some of the data that the academics will talk about. So, give an example of this. These graduates and the destinations that you see on the screen all came from the same degree, and we asked the students and sometimes parents at parents' evenings, was the degree in criminology and sociology, mathematics, or psychology? And the answer in this situation was psychology, but it could have actually been any of those, to be honest. There is a huge percentage of graduate positions where they're asking for graduates from any discipline, rather than a very specific pool of students. So enhancing that student experience, gaining that success at the end of a degree isn't necessarily on the minds of anyone doing post-16 studies, but it's useful for them to know that the degree is only part of the picture. If they can think about gaining work experience, thinking about who they are, what skills they've got, and putting that professionally on a CV and other places, then that will really help to get a really good graduate job where it's suitable for them. It's also important to to encourage them to volunteer, to join some clubs and societies. Universities all have employability awards. You can see that the UE Bristol Futures is the one that UE has. But it encourages students to take part, to do lots of different things, to develop those skills, and so that when they apply for graduate positions, they are talking about a whole host of evidence where they are drawing on their skills, not just from their university course. So it might be that they get involved in a photography society, skydiving, yoga. There is definitely something for everybody. However, a degree isn't a golden ticket. We mentioned right at the beginning that there are a huge number of people starting undergraduate courses each year. So it is important that students understand that that they do have to work hard, that they are going to have to do other things to make themselves stand out. And that's why this triangle that on the screen here is really quite powerful, because it does show them that qualifications do underpin their aspirations or their ideas or their thoughts and what they apply to. But actually, it's not just the whole picture. What they do, what they gain in terms of experience, and the person that they are in terms of their skills and attributes is also really important. And I think university does give people those opportunities to gain all those different experiences and skills, so that they can come out as a rounded individual, so they can go on to all sorts of different opportunities. So here are some useful resources to finish with, and you might find I've referred to UCAS and which university already, but there are a number there that students can find out about different careers and information about student finance. So I'm hoping that has been helpful to demonstrate and show the sorts of issues around higher education and how students can think about what the benefits might be and how they can make their minds up based on looking at information and where people have gone to in the past, so that they can make really good informed decisions.